Hey guys, it's that time of year again when the insect populations are just exploding in my vegetable garden, but also they're trying to make it into the greenhouse, my shop, and even my house. I'm going to show you how to take baking soda for 30 different pests. I'm going to show you pictures of each because you may not be familiar with all of them, especially if you don't garden some of these individual products. But you've probably seen them around your house or inside and have no idea what they are. So I'll give you a picture and a name and exactly how to control them using something as common baking soda and these everyday products that are probably already in your kitchen. So you won't have to spend a dime other than just mixing it up and putting it into effect and making it work, so you'll see no more pests around your garden, your greenhouse, your shed, your shop, or even in your house or your garage. Wherever you're seeing them, it will take care of them. So let's get started. I'll show you 30 different recipes and what they're going to control. So just a quick note before I get started on how to apply it in application methods. So one of my favorites is this 20-volt backpack sprayer. When I'm spraying the garden, I don't have to worry about refilling these smaller containers. But if you are using, or if you're just treating a very small area, a solo sprayer is great because you can pressurize it and cover a good, 100-foot square area pretty quickly with just maybe half a gallon in this. But if you're just doing spot treatments, a handheld sprayer like this works great. I'll put links to everything I'm talking about if you don't have the product already, and you can click on it and order it very quickly and have it at your house in less than a couple of days. Now I'm going to go from most common insect problem to least common. So the first one is ants. Everybody has ants at some point, and they're always finding their way to your pantry or in places like this in your greenhouse and getting into everything. I've got all my different formulas and everything, so I always have a few bottle caps placed around the floor area, the first place they're coming in, or any small cracks or opening. And that's key with ants, is you want to place these bottle caps or the bait I'm going to show you in the most obvious place where they enter. So if there's a crack, a small opening, or if you've seen them in that area before, do this. This is a mixture of 50% baking soda and 50% powdered sugar. You're going to mix it thoroughly and put it in these caps and put it in those areas I just talked about. Also, if there's just a trail of ants, put some across that trail and they'll start feeding on it, and that will kill them very quickly. It reacts with the insects or the ants' nervous system and will kill them very, very rapidly. Now the next formula I'm going to talk about is for roaches, and that's for any type of roaches, from the American roach to the small German roaches. It's a 3-part recipe. It's baking soda, just common granulated sugar, and all-purpose flour. I had to think there what type of flour. Yesterday I was talking about another type of flour. These are 3 in 3 equal parts, 1 equal of each one, ounce, 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 and whatever you're going to mix. If you have a big problem, you may do 2 or 3 ounces, but just remember you're going to do 3 equal parts. You're going to put them in the caps as we did for the ants, or you can just sprinkle it in corners and under sinks and places where you know you have the roaches. They're going to consume it, and again, when it gets into their internal feeding system and their digestive system, it's going to expand and it's going to kill them very quickly. So that's the simplest method for getting roaches, is these 3 items. Now our next one is for silverfish, and silverfish are very common around bathrooms and kitchens, especially around sinks, tubs, toilets, anywhere there's a lot of high moisture. This is a moisture-loving insect, and the baking soda doesn't require any mixture. You're just going to sprinkle this around areas where you're seeing them, and the moisture that they require, this will dehydrate them and they'll die really quickly. Now if you have a really heavy infestation of silverfish, you're going to repeat this process about every 3 to 5 days, and then after about 2 to 3 weeks you should see a massive reduction in silverfish. So just common baking soda using those exact methods will get rid of your silverfish. Now the next one is for fleas, and we have a lot of cats around our house that some of them go in and out, some of them are just only indoor cats, but fleas always find their way to the inside, and fleas prefer to lay their eggs in carpets, upholstery, pet bedding, anywhere there's fabric. They don't necessarily like hardwood floors or tile floors. They're going to be looking for that carpeted area. So this is something you're going to sprinkle into your carpeted area, but you're going to work it into the carpet with a broom or a stiff bristled brush so it can really get down in there. The way it works is it will dehydrate the flea eggs or the larvae when they hatch out. So just simple baking soda can help quite a bit for a flea infestation. If it continues, you want to repeat this process about every 7 to 9 days just to make sure, because there is about a two-week, 10 to 14 day cycle of where they're breeding, laying eggs, and then hatching out. So once you break that cycle and kill off all of the larvae and the eggs that are hatching out, you'll see a massive reduction in fleas, probably in that 2-week period. Now next we're talking about bed bugs, and those are very common to pick up if you've stayed at a hotel or an Airbnb, because they just seem to transport in people's luggage, and so they just pop up in your house seemingly from nowhere. But what you're going to have to do is you're going to take straight baking soda, and you need a duster like this one, or maybe even a larger one if you have a big infestation. You're going to dust around headboards, under the mattress, under the bed, in cracks and crevices, because during the day they'll hide before they come out at night to bite you. So it's really kind of like a mosquito. They wait till you're at your most vulnerable to come and bite you and suck the blood out of you. So just remember, dusting very carefully around your bed, underneath, all around, and then you can vacuum it up in about 7 days if you're not seeing any more bed bugs. So that's one of the things that's a nightmare for hotels and motels, is a lot of times they can be heavily infested with bed bugs. So it's really a good idea to do this. And if you're staying in a motel or hotel, you want to do a careful inspection with a flashlight around the bed, headboard. Even some nice hotels can have this problem. It's not uncommon now in America. So the greenhouse always has spiders in it because there's a lot of small openings and cracks and crevices. And in the summertime, I tend to leave the doors open. So there's always spiders coming in, as well as my metal building, my shop, my garage. So this is a super simple recipe because the alkaline and the smell of the peppermint that we're going to be using in this recipe will repel spiders and keep them out. So you want to use 10 drops of pure peppermint oil, 2 tablespoons of baking soda, and 2 cups of water. Mix that all together and spray it in cracks, crevices, at the base of windowsills, any possible openings around the outside of your house or greenhouse where power comes in, where your dryer vent comes out. You just want to make sure you treat it heavily. You can use something like this because you're going to be doing very specific spot treatments to keep the spiders from getting into your house or greenhouse or anywhere else you don't want them. Now the next recipe is for just common carpet beetles. If you have them around your house, you can take just pure baking soda, and if you don't have that duster like I showed you, and maybe this would work even better, is if you have a strainer, a kitchen strainer, you can just lightly tap it and dust any carpet, rugs, or anywhere you're having carpet beetles around baseboards, and then vacuum it up about 12 hours later with a vacuum cleaner that has a HEPA filter. And that way, in about a week, you may have to do this twice, but in about a week or after the first treatment, you're going to see a massive reduction if you have carpet beetles. Now the next is for pantry moths, and they're very commonly in birdseed and dry pet foods. A lot of times you might open the bag of birdseed and you'll actually see moths fly out. But this is a really simple solution. Wherever you're keeping those items, in a pantry, a storage container, wherever it is, you're going to take equal parts of just common white vinegar and baking soda, mix them together until they become a paste, a little bit, almost like toothpaste, maybe a little bit thinner. And then you want to clean all your shelves anywhere that you've stored or you're seeing pantry moths. Just give it a very thorough cleaning, wipe it down, and this will definitely take care of pantry moths. Now the next recipe is for the common housefly, and if you're seeing houseflies around your house, it could mean that there is a dead or dying animal, maybe a rodent, something in the attic like a squirrel, or possibly something in the garage or basement that's got in and has died. Could be something as small as a lizard. But anyways, usually the flies will come in and lay their eggs on those carcasses and then reproduce. But if you are seeing house flies, you want to do a recipe of 1 part baking soda, 2 parts apple cider vinegar, I had to think of what I was going to say, and 1 part sugar, granulated sugar. It's going to be 1, 2, 1. So if it's tablespoons, you do 1 tablespoon, 2 tablespoons, and 1 tablespoon. Get a small container like this and punch a hole in it. This was actually a hummus container, but it works perfectly for attracting flies. You just want a small container where you can mix those ingredients. The fermentation of the apple cider vinegar and the taste of the sugar will draw them in, they'll consume it, and it'll take care of your house flies in 24 hours. Now this is a very common problem, is drain flies. Drain flies live and breed in the drain of your sink and bathtubs. And a lot of times there's a little trick to doing this that a lot of people don't know about, but you're using 1 cup of just common vinegar, white vinegar, and 1 cup of the baking soda. Mix the two together well, and you want to put them in something like this, something that has a long spout, and there's a reason for that. If you have an overflow in your bathroom or shower drain, that overflow is the most common areas that drain flies breed in. There's a lot of debris in there you don't realize. So a lot of times people will pour this solution just into the drains and they can't understand why their drain flies just persist. But you want to get that overflow as well. So you're going to take this spout, pour it into the overflow, wait 15 minutes, pour some boiling water in there, and then that will eliminate a lot of that organic matter that's built up over the years in your overflow. Do the same in your regular drain and the overflow. That's the key to getting rid of drain flies. So from the house to the garden, we're going to move out to the garden. Now this can work on a ornamental garden or a vegetable garden, as I have right outside the greenhouse, but we're going to do this to take care of aphids around the garden. We're going to take 1 tablespoon of baking soda, 1 tablespoon of Castile soap. If you don't have Castile soap, you can use Johnson's baby shampoo or something like that. The last resort would be something like a dish soap, but you want to get something that's organic, so look very carefully at what you're using. You don't want to use a heavily chemicaled soap, but the best kind is the Castile. Then you're going to take a quart of water, put it into your sprayer, spray whatever plants you're seeing aphids on. You spray the up tops of the leaves, but a lot of times during the daytime aphids are hiding under the leaves, so you want to make sure that you do both on top and below. These solo sprayers that I highly recommend will spray from underneath. You can just hit them like that, and it's a lot easier than having to bend over and try to get it with these type of pump sprayers. It's a little bit harder, so a solo sprayer will work great on getting rid of your aphids, or helping you get rid of your aphids in your garden, whether ornamental or vegetable. Now the next is white flies, and this is something I don't normally have a problem with in my garden, but I'll put a photo right here so you can see exactly what I'm talking about when I talk about white flies. Not house flies, but small, tiny white flies you might have around your garden. They're also soft-bodied insects, just like the aphids, so you use the exact same procedure for white fly that you do for aphids. Now the next is for spider mites, and a lot of times if you have spider mites in your garden, you'll see kind of a very small webbing, but you never see any easily visible spiders. You might see tiny little red dots, and those are the spider mites. Now, just yesterday I did a video, or maybe it was the day before, I did a video specifically about getting rid of spider mites using buttermilk and whole wheat flour, and I'll put a link to that video right here. But you can also use the baking soda trick. 1 tablespoon of baking soda, 1 tablespoon of any type of vegetable oil you have, and 1 quart of water. Use your handy solo sprayer and spray the upper sides and undersides of leaves to get rid of spider mites. Now this is also a pretty rare bug that I see around my garden, is the mealy bug, and this is super simple to do. You're just going to take baking soda and water and make a paste, and then take a Q-tip and dab wherever you're seeing the mealy bugs. Wait 24 hours and just rinse them off there. It'll knock them out very quickly. Just kind of a thick paste, a little bit similar to toothpaste, and that should do the trick. Now the next in the garden is the problem if you're having with scale insects. You'll just take a clean paintbrush and you'll do the same thing. You'll mix baking soda and water, make it a little bit thinner this time, and just lightly dust it on wherever you're having the scale insects. Wait about 24 hours and again wash that off, but you may have to do a direct application in a little bit broader area for scale insects. Now the next is going to require that duster or a kitchen strainer again for cabbage loopers. If you have a lot of cabbage you're growing in the garden, you're seeing a lot of holes in them, that's probably what's doing it. So you're going to do a very light dusting early in the morning when the dew is just coming out. This may be 5 or 6 a.m. Just give it a light dusting there, and that should kill the larvae before they have a chance to do a lot of damage to your cabbage. Now in my garden I grow a lot of tomatoes, as most people do here in the United States, and the simple way to get rid of hornworms, if you have them, is to do equal parts mixing of baking soda and flour, just common all-purpose flour. Dust it very lightly. You're going to make sure you get this off because it can slow down the photosynthesis process, so just leave it on there for about 24 hours, and if you have hornworms, when they come out of their hiding places and they consume this, it's going to react with their digestive system, and you'll get rid of those hornworms very quickly. Another way to find out whether or not you have hornworms, and that's what eating your tomato plants, is to go out at night, get a special flashlight. I'll put a link to one down below that I ordered. I actually go through the garden sometimes at night and just shine that flashlight. If there are any hornworms in there, they almost glow like they're a fluorescent insect. So just take a look at one of those flashlights if you have a lot of something eating your tomatoes very quickly. Now every year I grow squash depending on what the weather's like. If we get too much rain, sometimes it fails, but just depending on how great the squash is, I don't want to lose it. So we want to use 2 tablespoons of baking soda, 1 tablespoon of a soap like this, a Castile soap, or a very organic dish soap. Mix them together, put them in 1 quart of water, and spray your squash plants very carefully, and especially the undersides of leaves, because that's where they can hide during the day. So that's a good way to prevent your squash from being filled with holes before you have a chance to harvest it. So if you're having a problem with cucumber beetles, just simple baking soda sprinkled in a ring around the base of the plant. That will repel the adults and mask the scent of the cucumbers to keep them from coming in and decimating your cucumber plants. So if you're having a problem with Japanese beetles around your garden, and that's pretty common if you're growing roses, because they're always attracted to roses, and sometimes crepe myrtles, but what we want to do is we want to take 1 tablespoon of baking soda, 1 tablespoon of sugar, 1 full banana peel, and about 1 quart of water, and put it in some small cans around the perimeter of the garden away from the roses or whatever else the Japanese beetle is eating, and it acts as a trap. It draws them in, they feed off of it, and they get trapped in the can. They just feed off and they just die right there on the spot. So you'll find that there's a lot of dead Japanese beetles in that little trap you've made. Now next is an earwig trap, and this is really simple. You're going to take 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, 1 tablespoon of baking soda, and you're going to mix it together. It's going to attract the earwigs right to this little trap. You're going to put it in shady spots around rocks and things in the garden like that, things that allow them to hide during the daytime, and they'll go in there and get trapped. Also, you want to place these at the base of the plant if you're seeing them on the plant itself. So just remember, it'll act as a small trap. They'll go in, get trapped, and they'll be dehydrated from the baking soda. Now, if you're having a problem with cutworms, you can do this. This is a super simple method to keep them away from your young and tender plants. You're going to create a little band around the base of them, and that will dry them out or desiccate them very quickly as they try to approach your young and tender plants as they start growing. So just common, ordinary cutworms, it will work great on. Now next, if you're having a problem with slugs in the garden, and believe it or not, they can do quite a bit of damage to a vegetable garden, but you're going to place a board in the garden and moisten the bottom side of the board and the ground, and that will attract the slugs to hide under there during the daytime. And the following day, or maybe 2 days later, come back and check and sprinkle baking soda directly on the slugs, and that'll take them out rather quickly. And that acts as kind of a trap plus a way to kill them directly to keep them from attacking all your vegetables. Now, if you have a problem with snails in the garden, that is another thing that this will work great on for dehydration, but you want to put a small ring around the base of the plants that they're attacking, and that will dehydrate them as well. So it will have to be refreshed repeatedly after a heavy rain because that will wash it away. So you want to keep it in its dry form if you're having a huge problem with snails. Now, if you're having a problem with pill bugs around your vegetable garden or any other type of garden, you can take equal parts of diatomaceous earth and baking soda and lightly dust it, again with the kitchen strainer, or as I mentioned earlier, the little duster that really works well. I would always recommend having a duster around the garden because it makes it super easy to apply fine powders like this without having to get it into the air and breathing it in. Now, if you're having a problem with thrips, which is not a problem in my garden, but if you are, you're going to take 1 tablespoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of neem oil, and a quart of water, and you're going to apply it directly to the area where you're having that problem, and it will knock thrips out very quickly. Now, if you're having a problem with leaf miners, this will work every single time. It's a simple recipe. We're going to take 1 teaspoon of Castile soap, 1 tablespoon of baking soda, and 1 quart of water. We're going to spray all of the leaves, and that's going to disrupt their feeding cycle and the larvae that we're going to hatch out and try to start the process all over again. So just remember, those 3 will stop leaf miners. Now, if you're having a problem with corn earworms, and it's been a long time since I've grown corn because it takes up such a large area, but you're going to take 1 teaspoon of baking soda and use your dusting mechanism, and you can buy the much larger duster. If you are growing a good sized patch of corn, it will stop those very quickly. If you'll do that, just dust each corn carefully, each ear of corn, and that will stop them from destroying your crop of corn. Now, if you're growing spinach or beets, you might have a problem with the beet armyworms, and there's an easy way to get rid of them as well. This is quite a lethal combination. You're going to take 1 tablespoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of molasses, mix them well together in a quart of water, and spray it once a week until you get rid of the beet armyworm. And it's very, like I said, it's very lethal to them. It'll get rid of them very quickly, and it'll save your spinach or your beets from being completely decimated. Now, next is something I don't think I've ever had a problem with, but I have heard this recipe. It's for gall midges, and it's very simple to spray directly on the flowers or the buds or wherever you're having the problem at. But you're going to take 1 tablespoon of baking soda and 1 tablespoon of hydrogen peroxide and 1 quart of water, mix it up and spray it in the evening so you can knock them out before they do a lot of damage to your plants. Now, as with most of my recipes, when you're talking about spraying plants, you always want to do a small test area, just maybe 1 leaf, wait 24 hours and see what happens. Also, you never want to apply these in the middle of the day when the sun is at its most intense. Early morning or late afternoon is the best time. And another thing is if you have a torrential rain or just a moderate rain, you may need to reapply it the next day once the rain is stopped. So guys, if there's anything in the video that you don't currently have, I'll put links in the description so you can order them and have them shipped to you rather quickly. I don't get any kind of sponsorship from any of these products. It's just things that I actually use around my home greenhouse, garden, workshop, and it all seems to work really well. And I use a lot of different recipes. If you have any questions about this video or any previous video, take a look, because I have a lot of videos before this one. You can find all sorts of different recipes for different problems around your house. So if you do have any questions, please become a public subscriber first, because I always put public subscribers to the front of the line and answer those questions first, because I get anywhere from 100 to 300 questions and comments every day. So guys, have a great day.